right, welcome everybody
And
to
Leo's popped by at the last second. Welcome, Leo.
Power to the people.
Episode 15 of the Blowback Roundtable. We thought we were just going to have Dust as our special guest. We invited Leo, but he didn't confirm, so we weren't sure he was coming. He was able to pop back in. So as you can see, Dust is busy making a delivery. He's going to be very safe while he talks to us.
Big up.
Ben's in Hungary. Leo, are you in Berlin today?
I am.
And Carlo is in the belly of the beast, heart of DC. We just want to thank everyone for watching. There's a lot to discuss, as always. We were maybe going to start our discussion today talking about Zelensky issuing some threats to the Europeans about, the behavior of Ukrainian refugees in various parts of Europe and how they're pretty well behaved, but if things don't go their way, that could change. We did just lose Carlo. He's having some connectivity issues. Let me pop him back in.
Hey, Rosalie. Oh, here we go.
Yep, he's back. We're back.
But
that's okay.
Ben, let me hand it over to you if you want to talk about some of the foreign policy issues.
Sure. I'm sure we're going to get onto other gatherings, but it really is the tourists in Kiev was a really nice thing. What we had last time, which was Thursday, we began with, I think, Blinken's visit when he visited a McDonald's and a cemetery, walked around with Kuleba. And since then, we have two more visitors that you can share on screen if you want. One was Boris Johnson in Lviv, whatever you want. He got an honorary decree, and I don't know why, but they're sending the clowns now. And Baerbock 360 was there. And Blinken and Nuland just got the fuck home, and they are both. Nuland is talking about, we're going to hurt the most precious assets of Russians and Atacams. And basically, Blinken did this very strange interview, I think, in The Economist, where he said, yeah, Ukraine will be the first to do negotiations, and we would support that, being the United States, if Russia does it first. I thought that was telling. In the meantime, Zelensky had two interviews, one with Fareed Zakaria of CNN and the other also with The Economist. I don't know when that was shot, but it just got produced. And I think we should read that fucking quote just exactly as it is, because it's mafia style. So he said to the interviewer, this isn't Zakaria, this is The Economist. Curtailing aid to Ukraine from the Allies will only prolong the war, and this will create risks for the West in its own backyard. It is impossible to predict how millions of Ukrainian refugees in European countries will react to the fact that their country was abandoned. Ukrainians generally behaved well, and we are very grateful to those who sheltered them. But it will not be a good story, in air quotes, in Europe if it pushes these people into a corner. That's the full bloody thing. And just to mix it up a little, if you want to go back, that's why we call this threats, sides, and portents. Over the last 4 days, meaning the weekend, Monday, and yesterday, these four headlines came up, Billy Bob, if you want to put them on screen, which I thought astonishing. All of these headlines. One is foreign affairs. Will there be abandonment? There's a possible change. Ukraine's in deep trouble. Even if we send billions, it won't help. We are determined to persevere, but the worry is that the Allies are not. That was the Washington Post. And Telegraph's Richard Kemp, one of those heroes, who said, Ukraine is winning, it's amazing, it's Churchill and Dunkirk and all that. He said the counteroffensive is stalling, the West must prepare for humiliation. The first paragraph of that was, it's not a question when. It's not a question of if, but when. So there is a huge tide, change in perspectives in the Western media, and obviously Zelensky is reacting, and I almost feel for him. But your takes on where this is going?
So yeah, that was a whole lot there, Ben. You compressed a lot of stuff in a short time window.
Yeah, I tried.
So the first thing was all the visits. So there was the visits with Boris Johnson. He got an honorary degree, which is weird because, I couldn't imagine he could even earn a single degree. But
and it's like Liz Truss after his period as prime minister, he doesn't represent anyone right now. It's just for show. He's not the prime minister.
Yeah. Is he an office holder at all?
No, he's got no office in the British system.
So you can't even get a bank account.
or give out some citizenships, British citizenship to people. That's a possibility.
But wait, just one addition. I saw an article about the EU ready to concede to all the Russian demands. I mean, I don't know if I hallucinated. I didn't have time to read the article, but I saw this article that the EU is ready to concede and to negotiate.
I think what we were talking about specifically was the grain deal, and it was still more trickery. I read it in Euractiv, and it was saying that, well, all the demands of Russia that for a year we didn't fall into, we are ready to do, but what we're not going to do is sorry, this is a different topic, is reattach the SWIFT system to the Russian, what do you call it, grain bank, but we're going to do it with a subsidy which is in Luxembourg. Because that's where you can transfer your money. We get grain, we transfer the money there, and of course it won't be stolen. So that's what I read in the EU. That was just the grain deal, not the entire let's negotiate with Russia.
I will try to find the article. The article definitely said EU is ready to make concessions.
Wow.
To Russia's demands, but I will try to find it.
Yeah,
anyway,
please do.
Anyway, yeah, there's a huge change of tone in Western media for sure.
Yeah, sea change and worries all around.
Yeah. So what does this mean? Does this mean? I mean, the EU has said that they're out of ammunition. The Biden also made a slip to a journalist at the G7 that the US is out of ammunition. So like, I don't know what the game plan for the imperialist bloc is. To focus on China with what? Like 70% of US conscription age males are unfit for service. That's what the Pentagon released a study. 70% of the right age of young men are either overweight or have psychological problems or addiction problems. And so I really don't know what the game plan is for the imperialists.
Another factor was academic performance.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, I got waivers for all those things, so they can give waivers. That's how I got in.
Yeah, I mean, to summarize, they just got their ass kicked in the chip war with China. They're pretty much out of Europe, but still sort of trying to amplify the Eastern Europe, the midgets in Poland, while the West is getting into an uproar against them. I think Nicolas Sarkozy, well, the previous PM of France, said the exact same thing. He said, the US is using Ukraine to weaken Europe. And that means him, Western Europe, Italy, Germany, France. Very, very true. But what they have right now is the Atacms. This is missiles launched by the HIMARS system. Remember when the HIMARS was the wonder weapon that's going to save everyone? Russia has developed a fucking defense against it. They're just shooting them down en masse and destroying the system. This is a new missile for that system that has a 300-kilometer range. That was earmarked for the Chinese conflict, for Taiwan, for that sort of shit. And there's military voices who are upset about this, that we really need those. We shouldn't send them to Ukraine, but according to ABC, these unnamed US officials says they will be sent to Ukraine for the first time soon. That's the only copium they have.
And didn't Blinken's rhetoric change? Before he said we're going to make sure that these weapons aren't used, on inside of Russian soil, and now he's changed it and said, hey, if it's up to the Ukrainians how they're going to use them.
He always does that backflip, but he never said, I think it was Sabrina Singh, the Pentagon spokeswoman, who said, we trust them to use them responsibly. That was the phrase. Of course we do. Ukraine uses everything responsibly. What have you been watching the last year?
What will be the EU's response to Zelensky's threat that basically I'm holding Europe hostage? What do you think their response will be?
I wish we had one. Since we're a US colony, well, most of Europe is, except for Hungary, pretty much, and maybe Serbia. I don't think there's going to be one. I mean, they have shown Olaf Scholz, the pirate at the G20 with the patch. They're just willing to do anything. I mean, this Baerbock 360 woman, the German, what is she? Is she the foreign minister, I think, of Germany?
Yeah,
anyway, she was
right.
She stood next to Kuleba, the advisor to Zelensky, and she was talking about, maybe months, maybe years until we get the missiles, which is their version. What is that? The Taurus missiles. And this guy next to him said, oh, you're going to deliver them anyway, sooner or later. completely dismissive, and she just stood there like Scholz stood next to Biden when the Nord Stream thing was going to be. Well, we have ways of taking care of that. They don't have a sovereign bone or a stand up for themselves bone in their body, it turns out. So I don't
But
think there
there's
will be.
public opinion. How would it affect public opinion? You know,
Well, Poland and Hungary, we have very strong shift in public opinion. I don't know about Western Europe, but since this news is coming out, 500, 600,000 dead, a lot of this is now getting circulated. Public, it's drop by drop, it's going down into the public.
Dramatically. I mean, we saw the polls conducted by Navalny's organization.
Yeah, that was amazing.
2 weeks ago. More than half of Germans and more than half of French population blames the U.S. for the war and also thinks Putin is not that bad.
I forgot to quit Telegram. Sorry. Yeah.
And how much weight should we put on the polls taken in within Ukraine that point up Zelensky being the major cause of corruption within Ukraine? These are Ukrainian people,
and that was
done by one of the displeasure. Is that it? Yeah.
It was one of these.
That was startling.
One of these foundations, Ukrainska Pravda Demokratia, something like that foundation. It's sort of like an NGO. So another sort of event that they didn't expect this. That's basically 4 out of 5 people, 78%, I think, was the final result of people think the corruption in Ukraine is shouldered by or is Zelensky at the head is responsible for it. So, yeah.
Give me 1 second, guys.
I can't imagine, the people of Europe hearing Zelensky's threats of, unleashing an unhappy Ukrainian refugees on their host nations is gonna engender positive feelings with the rest of Europe. I mean, but obviously we're gonna see how that goes.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, it was obviously mafia style. If you don't know what I want, we will have your heads. We will kill your children. We will bomb your cafes. And then Ben had that interesting piece he sent along about the guy who wanted his.
That was in California.
Yeah, he wanted to prove that he was 1,000%, as I guess Ben put it, Ukrainian, and it turned out he was only 7.9%. That was an interesting little piece.
It's not from me. Al Jazeera, to their credit, did this short video of this event somewhere in California. There was this. So he went to a genetics lab to test his. It's like Ancestry.com, and when he found out he was 7-point-something% Ukrainian, he wanted to, and there was an actual, arson event, like a crime. He wanted to burn the bloody lab down. Yeah, there's more of that to come. I said this numerous times that I fear much more from the so-called what do you call these refugees?
The Nazi diaspora.
Yeah,
it's a Nazi diaspora. It's a Banderite diaspora. It's wonderful. It's a wonder to see. Well, the U.S. has done it again.
Yeah, they have. Meanwhile, Europe has put down the Iron Curtain. Like, absolutely, they're beginning to take cars, phones, personal accessories, anything from Russian tourists entering Europe. There's videos of this that are on the sanctions list that they bring with themselves. So you come with a car and 2 dogs and a phone, then you're left with 2 dogs and no phone. Just imagine that. The Iron Curtain is there. No Russians allowed. And Russia is not reflecting this. That was made clear by Vladimir Putin, who just arrived at. There's another gathering called the Eastern Economic Forum, which I think deserves much more attention than anything in the West. Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Did you also mention the meetings of the Chinese foreign minister with Putin?
Well, that's the Eastern Economic Forum. It's in Vladivostok. This is the far east of Russia, which used to be the poor place. But apparently only 30% of the underground minerals have been, what do you call it, when you test. So there might be absolute huge. And Russia is recalibrating its entire industries, everything there. And yesterday, Kim Jong-un arrived somewhere close to that area. area with his armored train. He's set to speak with Putin. I'm not sure it's going to be at the Eastern Economic Forum or in a different setting. But yeah, and that's where he met the Chinese vice premier. He had a talk at the sidelines, and he made this speech, and there's numerous highlights of it. I thought that's most of the world is paying attention to there. I mean, Russia apparently, since the start of the SMO, has earned more than twice that the assets, which is gold, foreign exchange reserves, that the West froze, meaning stole. That's one bloody thing. The second thing comes from, I think, Business Insider, like finance magazine, that the three largest ports in Russia, they've basically rejoined global trade with the highest activity since the beginning of the war. I mean, it's alive. It's then in his speech, he said Russia has 3% unemployment, which hasn't happened in history. Not to mention the 90s in history. So it's just going ahead. And he noticed the US plan for Ukraine was capture land until they run out of people and ammunition and weapons, and then do a little bit of negotiation and basically recreate the armed capability, restore the capacity of Ukraine. And that off-ramp is not open. Russia is not going to go for that. He had some other words on different things as well. F-16s won't change a bloody thing. We have huge amounts of volunteers, apparently 270,000 in the last 3 months. And he singled out British intelligence. Apparently, they are doing the behest of the USA, trying to provoke Russia. They're trying to do the attacks on the Kerch Bridge, different terrorist stuff like the Kakhovka Dam. Apparently, a new, which I haven't read in detail, some sort of cutting the lines of a nuclear facility was British intelligence. So it was interesting that Putin singled out British intelligence at this meeting. That sort of sums up the.
There are definitely some troublemakers. Now, what about Romania? I guess I heard this on the YouTubes last night. Romania is gonna. Well, they announced some war games, joint war games with other NATO countries in the Black Sea.
Yeah, and the Danube Delta, which is up there with the Romanian border.
So, I mean, this could be, the setup of the what was the episode in Vietnam that sparked that war? It was called the Gulf of Tonkin incident. So we could have our Black Sea incident. I'm totally serious. Like, I mean, we don't know what they want to do, but they could definitely engineer some kind of a Black Sea incident with this war games coming up to really kick off, NATO versus Russia, straight up. We hope not, and we could be catastrophizing, but it's a possibility. You can't dismiss it.
I can't dismiss it.
We should give a shout out to Wade Morse and Ernst Gruning, the only two senators that voted against the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. The difference is that the U.S. troops were involved. It was a troop. It was a lie to get to accelerate troop levels in Vietnam, and there were American troops. So, and there's no like concern about that Russia will take the bait. I don't think they will at any level. So it will render it neuter. There was actually two Gulf of Tonkin resolutions, and whenever I kibitz with these like military types, they're anxious to point that out to me. And the first one was actually the U.S. the Maddox, the actual ship that was involved in the second Gulf of Tonkin resolution, was behind a bunch of South Vietnamese smaller ships going in and attacking in the Gulf of Haiphong, and that was the first Gulf. The second one was purely made up. It was simply a lie, so that Johnson and McNamara could satisfy the U.S. military-industrial complex and go in and convince the American people that huge troop acceleration was needed, and there was really just a year later, or 2 years later, there were 500,000 people there, and I was 1A I became 1A for 7 years.
But the West might decide to do a provocation that Russia has to respond to. You know, I mean, you can't say that Russia isn't going to fall for it. I mean, if they try and sail through the Kerch Bridge, I mean, they're going to be fired on. And the U.S. then could go to the American public and say, "Hey, look, they attacked us. We were just navigating in international waters, and they attacked us for no good reason." I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but that's the kind of thing that they could.
So that's it. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
So it's up to the West. Like, I mean, Russia has its red lines, and it's up to the West to cross those red lines or not cross those red lines.
Yeah.
What really hurts them? Sorry.
No, go ahead. I don't have anything.
What really hurts them, in the European press at least, is the grain deal being dead. So I think this whole Black Sea thing is, we're going to have British jets go up and sort of defend whatever grain ships land, but they still don't have insurance because Lloyd's of London is not going to insure ships going into there. And what's the point when Russia has destroyed the main port infrastructure? You're not getting any fucking thing out there, and you're not going to get weapons in. But still, they want to posture. I think this is mostly posturing. Not saying it's not dangerous, Billy Bob. You have a good point there. But it mostly is posturing. It's exactly the same since you brought in Tonkin. The same with Vietnam, but it's not working because they sent Biden. I don't know if any of you watched video snippets of his press conference afterwards where he got sent off stage, basically. Have you watched it?
Yeah, I saw that.
He said, "Good morning, Vietnam," the title of the movie. That's going to go down well in Vietnam. He started mumbling about, I don't know what the plan is. I'm just following orders, and I don't know. Whatever you're going to do, I'm going to go sleep. And he went off stage while people were still shouting questions. I mean, that's what he did in Hanoi, Vietnam. I don't know what's the point of this, trying to woo them across away from China, which is never going to work constitutionally. I put that in the details that Vietnam has the 4 big constitutional knots that they're not going to do: allow bases or do foreign bases themselves, join one country against another in a military bloc. Just not going to happen. Sure, they'll play games just like India does on economic, financial things. You can give us something, we can give you something, they'll do that. They won't do anything else. But, it's posturing, keeping up the illusion that we've won. That's what it's turning into, I think.
And it's really kind of disgusting in the way, just in my lifetime, Vietnam was pure evil. It was the domino that had to be brought to heel. And now there's just enormous business exchanges, commercial exchanges, and this attempt by the Biden administration, that scum, to exploit the hostility between Vietnam and China that's been around for centuries. And so what I do, and this is going to sound silly to some people, but what I do when I can't sleep, which is pretty much constant, is I watch buffets. I have a habit of watching buffets, and I've watched 2 buffets, the best buffets in Ho Chi Minh City, Ho Chi Minh, a former Saigon, and they're both, one's a Marriott, and the other's not a Radisson, but something like that, and they're I think the Ho Chi, the Marriott, is like $65 a plate. So and the hotel is beautiful. It's lavish, and we want to talk. We can talk all we want about the Chinese miracle, which it is, but the Vietnamese miracle is it's another communist country, and it is. And so it seems to me that to counter this effort by the Biden administration, now suddenly they're going to build a railway across the Sahel and all this crap that they're throwing out there, was to point up, look, if you like Vietnam, it's a communist country. It's run by their communist party, and they're doing great. So and how those people didn't have to die, so that to maintain,
I'm sure,
colonial control, basically.
Because you're right, Elder, you probably know this, but much of Afghanistan, the first time around, was about inflicting a Vietnam on the USSR, because it was such a shame for the US. That was the real big defeat. So they wanted that inflicted on someone else, on the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, one. I just point out one salient fact about Afghanistan early on, and the Mujahideen, and that is when Najibullah and I think his predecessor Armas came into. I can't remember his name. I got probably Hamas, probably getting it wrong, but Najibullah because he was murdered. Um, they were they were they were of course they were Soviet. They were Soviet. They preferred the Soviets to the West, but they also provided women's rights. I mean, they were very big on women's rights, and and so when I'm talking to someone and we're contesting, and I go, but the U.S. supported the Mujahideen, which were obviously not for women's rights in the way they're reflected in the West. Now, how do you feel about that? But but the fact of the matter is, if you're a ninny here in the West and you wanted to support women's rights as being central to the efficacy of the way your government was run, Nasrallah was your man, and he tried to defend it. They became they chipped away and they chipped away at the women's rights, and then he was out of office, and then a few years later, they murdered him. They slaughtered him in the streets. And when
The
I say
socialist
that, I mean the U.S. and the Mujahideen. So,
the socialist government of Afghanistan in the 70s were amazingly advanced in terms of women's rights, in
yeah,
terms of gender equality, in terms of like all ethnic equality was amazing. There were young women scientists, professors, very, very much becoming a very free, socially free society. Women could, go out dancing all night by themselves and come home in the 70s. And then the U.S. began to fund the Mujahideen, which were the people who innovated the practice of throwing acid in young women's faces for not wearing the jihad, the
Hijab.
good job.
jihad, the veil.
You,
So when Hillary Clinton said we must stand with Afghan
Women.
girls and women, right after she said that in 2001 or 2002, for the next 5 years, 500,000 or probably much more than that, 2 million Afghans died, including Afghan girls
yeah.
and women, obviously. So, like, it's just the hypocrisy of the West using identity issues and gender equality to further their imperialist violence is just unbelievable. And what's even more unbelievable is how many Western leftists just fail to see this entire thing, and they keep saying like, how can you support Iran because they're not, they're not it's a patriarchal society, and the girls and women don't have rights there, and just saying things like this, which is completely
But they don't.
backwards.
What they don't notice, this is mainstream the Department of State talking points right now. This really is. It's Afghanistan is about women's liberation, which they stole from the Soviets, not feminism, but women's liberation. What I'm showing here, and you can put it on screen if you like, is the 1970s Afghanistan you described. That's three young women going to the university. And by the way, Libya, Gaddafi's Libya looked very much the same, just much richer with better sports cars and just no hijabs anywhere. And then they find the most regressive elements in society. They unleash them and create violence and chaos. It's been the playbook for ages.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to support women's rights in Iran, then pressure your fucking governments to stop the sanctions.
Yeah.
What liberalism, the excision of Marxism from the liberal discourse means that people don't no longer understand that social attitudes come from material conditions, not the other way around. How people feel about sexism and how people feel about racism and all of these things depends on the material conditions, whether they have food and whether they have electricity and things like this. I mean, when a country is under attack by imperialist forces, people don't have the luxury to progress forward. People hold on to their religions, and time and again, I hear this from Western leftists. It's just completely mind-boggling.
Yeah,
Leo, that's a good point, and I don't want to cut things off, but I wanna interject and go a little bit in a different direction. So poor Dust James we're using as a prop.
exactly what I was going to.
You can see him driving his truck, but I wanted to bring Dust into the conversation, and I wanted to say a few things. So this is episode 15 of our show. I really am liking and appreciating everybody participating in our program. And it did last week. It got some great reviews from the Greenville Post, unsolicited, and he said a lot of nice things.
Thank you for that.
But anybody that watched last Thursday's program knows that we don't all agree. And there's some latent, disagreement underlying, our shows. And sometimes it surfaces, and then sometimes it surfaces in an ugly way. But the viewers might think that ugly way is entertaining. It's possible. But there's some differences. There's some political differences. We all consider ourselves on the left, and we have different understandings of what that means. And last week at the end of the program, me and Ben disagreed with Carlo, and we were, had a bit of a heated exchange, which wasn't maybe that productive. Before the program, Dust was explaining that he gets Carlo's frustration with Ben and myself. And I was hoping that we could have a discussion about that. Also, Leo, I'm surprised that he was able to pop in, and I would like to hear his 2 cents. But, Dust backstage never had a chance to finish his criticism of Ben and myself, and he was making a good point. And I really wanted to allow him to do that. That would be more interesting to me. Because that's kind of where my mind is at. Obviously, the foreign policy issues are important, and I think we did do a good job of touching on them in the first half hour of the show. But Dust, are you willing to go ahead and, eviscerate Ben and myself?
I really would be honored.
I'm not really. I would need a direct question.
Yeah.
It was kind of an open-ended. Here, mute me for a few seconds, and then I'll come back.
Let me move. You tell me
850-65.
So
okay, yeah, he's a busy man.
He before backstage, Dust was articulating Carlo's anger with us, and he said he understands it, and he's more than in his rights to feel that way. So I was hoping he would be able to share, but
I'll come back. I'm good.
Okay, I got you back. I unmuted you, Dustin. We can hear you now.
I was I understand Carlo's anger. I think there's a tendency among I call right-wing callists. And it's interesting. A lot of these folks come from Europe, and a lot of these folks come from the more liberal regions of the United States. I'm a worker, I'm a revolutionary, I'm a communist, and I've been organizing workers and oppressed people over 15 years in so-called Trump country, and I get frustrated with people who will coddle Trumpism or stereotype so-called Trumpism is the majority viewpoint in these rural areas. When in reality, even in the places where Trump is the most popular, non-voting and apathy towards the imperialist duopoly is the main sentiment among the majority in those places. Like maybe in the most Trump country play, you have like the majority of people don't vote to begin with, and then maybe 60% will vote Trump and the rest Democrat. But in reality, I think the majority of people are tired of the system, tired of the manipulations. And we see a lot of, I call Trump is both the most blatantly racist, disgusting politician who attacks the most exploited group of workers in my communities, undocumented workers, and is a communist and someone who promotes class struggle. Those have been the workers who have been the most revolutionary, who have led the union struggles. And I don't think we should coddle people supporting Trump. I think we can appeal to their class outlook and their frustrations with the war, while also calling Trump the disgusting imperialist racist that he is, just like the Biden and the rest of them, and also, point out the manipulations that are being done against people. If you look at groups like Midwestern Marks, they called this recent country music, I believe, right-wing astroturf who was attacking, folks on welfare as a revolutionary icon. And I'm a big fan of country music, progressive country music. And the majority of the country music on the underground that's not promoted by these algorithms and right wings is far more progressive. And what the right wing manipulation, Trumpism, what they'll do is they'll put sentiments of anti-war, and they'll put class struggle sentiments, and then they'll combine it with the most visceral and disgusting attacks amongst the most revolutionary exploited portions of our community. So when I see anybody coddling Trumpism or stereotyping my region as all people that support Trump, I get angry about that.
But hey, can I interject for 1 second? The disingenuous use of leftist language, in order to push bourgeois domination and the narratives against liberation is used not only by the populist right, but also the populist left. The Democrats do exactly the same thing and use
not just Democrats, but progressives. But yeah, go
progressives, on. The social progressives do exactly the same thing. They talk about all of these working class issues.
Still here.
Okay, your voice.
Yeah, they talk about all these working class issues. They talk about minority rights and all of these things cynically to push forward their agenda to keep the status quo as exactly as it is. And also, this is the absolute central point of U.S. American domestic politics is that people are stuck on this dichotomy. People are very much trapped in this antagonism between the two sides of the same coin of liberalism, conservative liberals or social progressive liberals. They're all liberals, right? Trump is a liberal. Biden is a liberal. Everyone is a fucking liberal, which means freedom, community, and equality for the property owners only. So they're all liberals. So this antagonism, sure, we can fight until we're blue in the face, but it doesn't fucking matter because they're two sides of the same coin. And on Trump, yeah, he's a fucking racist.
Yeah.
So is
no one disagrees there. No one
disagrees. So is fucking Biden.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
But let's
Absolutely.
look. Hold on. Before we list all of the bad things that Trump has done, right? First of all, Biden has done all of them. But Google Trump's funding of black universities. Read up on that. Trump had in his quietly. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure. I cannot really explain it. I'm not sure why he didn't make it a big deal to signal that he's progressive.
You guys still hear me?
Yeah,
yes, we do.
We still hear you. I was just saying that I don't know why Trump in his first term, in the first 6 months of his first term, he historically kind of unprecedented funded black universities, to the tune of $250 million or something like that, or even more than that. This is no one ever talks about this. I mean, that it's something. It's pretty significant. So I'm just saying, like, of course Trump is a fucking racist and he's done a lot of horrible things, but at the same time, as he talks about kung flu, at the same time as he talks about all of these horrible things, he did visit North Korea.
He did try to unify Korea. That's the one point I always made. I don't think I ever characterized them as anything else.
He visited Xi Jinping. He visited China. He visited Russia.
He wanted good relations with Russia, and that's better for the world, including Americans. Now, thank you for jumping in, Leo, because I feel that it's been arranged into a true roundtable with the kind of teams forming. So I really enjoy this, and I hope it will be productive. But I have to, I think, directly respond because I think there was accusations there of right-wing tailism, especially from Europe. Now, I'm not going to go into credentials like you're the revolutionary for 15 years. I'm just a third-generation commie. I am from the outside looking out. I always look at Carlo as one of my elders, my diedushkas. That is why I don't like conflict and shouting. That's why I want to discuss this. But when it comes to Trump, the phenomena of the person, he got in there as a weird circumstance, a reality TV host, a businessman. I dislike his guts. I hope that's clear. But when we talk about people in the US, I don't think it's at all productive to say those are MAGA people. They're white supremacists. They're racist. Those are usually small business types who has been just as fucked over as the truckers, like dust. They are dissatisfied, and maybe they're miseducated. Maybe they don't know the source of their problems, and we should be there to tell them. That's all I said. Not just, oh, well, that's a right winger. That country music is right tailist. That is not particularly good. That, I think, is this leftist litmus test that doesn't help anybody. If you go out, you go to friends' places, obviously at dinner, you might have 3 or 4 real, I don't use this word, but real redneck Southern Bible thumping people. I just listen to their worries, their problems, and try to engage them and try to show them where that comes from without saying, no, that's a cancelable offense. I hope I made that clear last time. I'm not looking for a fight, especially after last Thursday, but I hope this brings some clarity to discussion.
At this point, I'd just like to add, first of all, I like what Wooter Peters told me, that the left is lazy when it comes to these things, and one of the signs of the laziness, I'm going to do a performance with a young woman. She's not young anymore, but in October, and we were kibitzing, and she brought up the Barbie movie. I don't know anything about it. I don't even know if it's a movie.
I don't think anybody here watched it.
And then other people were bringing up this song, and I'm going, that's Madison Avenue. I once had this dream, and I was younger, and I'm not organized enough to do it, but I was going to take all of these cultural tropes that originate on Madison Avenue to divide people up, and that are called, then they call them revolutionary. They're going to change the world. These are earth shattering. They never do that. They don't have that effect. They're there for entertainment and to make money. And part of the hype is to call them the most amazing thing that's ever been done. And they're not. They're not the most. They're crap. It's just shit. Crap. It's like Lucy Lepard, the art historian, once said. She said, rich people keep all the best art for themselves. And if that means Beethoven, Mozart, that means Picasso, and Rubens and everybody. They keep them all. They keep it all for themselves. And in the past, that was like obviously true. So now it's less. It's a little subtler because you go to the art gallery. There's already somebody looking over your shoulder going, "Oh, I could do that." You look at the painting and you go, "It's a fucking Rubens. You can't do that, you ninny." So there is that. The one thing I wanted to mention in particular was something that Regis said last time he was on our show, and he was talking about Regis Tremblay, and he's living in Yalta on Crimea, and he talked about his son being an 8-year Green Beret, and I could see our other guest from Moscow. What's Ian, right? Is that his name? Yeah. He got this like, he's been a Green Beret. For me, I was disgusted I was disgusted because all I was doing was getting pilloried by people who never apologized for the Vietnam War and throwing green berets in my face as being the real heroes. Well, fuck that. I was the real hero because I fucking refused to go. And so
But the
he,
story,
but
just to be complete, the story of Regis's survival, his son, was that he is like a prepper now,
that was
preparing
it.
for.
That's the point I want to get to. He talked about his son saying he thought there was going to be a civil war in the U.S. Between who? Tell me, between who? Do you really think the LGBT community is going to go up against a bunch of these right wing militias in Michigan? Fuck no. They don't have any guns. They don't have any guns. They're not interested in that. They're just interested in living their lives. So there's some outside force that's made us. This is where Wooter is really, his statement is so important, that has made the left so lazy that they pick up the talking points of the right and use them as though they have a validity, and they don't. They're really just a product of that aspect of Madison Avenue, which is to sell things. And they do sell things. They've sold this bullshit of the possibility of a civil war to these ninnies. People talk to me all the time about, and these my and my uncles when they were alive used to talk to me about all the guns they owned.
No, I
Right
completely.
now, these people were supposed to be put upon financially, yet they had $40,000 worth of weapons in their houses. How put upon are you when you can afford
Carlo,
that many weapons? And I'm not talking,
once you
black market deals. I'm talking registered AR-15s.
what
Can you
have you
guys
made?
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right. Where did I get caught off at talking about Trump's imperialism?
Well, there's been a lot of. Can I respond to Carlo, and maybe you want to jump in after that if you're in the game now? Sure. So I agree with you. I hope that's not surprising, but yes, there is a division. Most Americans think that this divide and rule has always worked in Afghanistan, in the two Vietnams, in the two Koreas, not at home. That is the exact same war they're doing at home. And when you say the right wing thing sells guns, well, Pride Month sells exactly the same. This is the thing. Without a civil war, there's already people who say, "Oh, that's the other camp," and that is what I would try with every fiber of my being to stop. The same goes in Hungary. The same goes in the US, saying that's right-wing tailism, and they say this is LGBTQ propaganda, is both extremely the way they want it, at each other's throats, not side by side with each other. Do you understand? This war,
Well,
it's come home to you guys.
I do understand, but there's a huge difference here. There's a difference between biology and Madison Avenue, and the way it influences U.S. politics. The biology is, look, I've been reading a book on called The Palatine on Rome, Augustus, Tiberius, Nero, Claudius,
Are you making
whatever
the
they.
point that homosexuality has
Okay,
always been with us? Because
every
I already agree.
every one of that and of that era and of all of history, they all had homosexual lovers. They
Yes.
preferred their homosexual lovers to their wives. Their wives were essentially there to augment their careers. And
As it
another,
should
and
be.
you go back to Greek. I mean, Alexander the Great had his male lover when he was on. So this is biology. Now,
I
it, but I can see people now, Americans, wincing over that biology, which has been around so much longer than the ninification of a U.S. society has been, which is and I can hear the fear in people's voices, and it's being exploited. It's being exploited, and it's trivial. If they want to have a parade, if people of that sexuality of LGBTQ people want to have a parade, let them have a parade. The fucking cops have parades. We have, that cops in these countries, all these Irish cops who were once their ancestors were indentured servants, they now have parades and they kill black people in huge numbers. But every year they march down. They've got their armored personnel carriers and all that stuff. They've gotten free from the U.S. military, and they have their parades. Everybody has a parade.
But the thing is, for the left. Sorry for the noise here. The fire truck.
Oh, that's you. I thought that would be Dust.
But the thing is, for the left to focus on individual lifestyle freedoms, for the left to focus on issues of identity, is a losing proposition. It is playing into the hands of the establishment. I mean, the thing is that the Bolsheviks recruited specifically, extensively among the lumpen proletariat. They recruited the most hideous, uncouth, unpolite, backwards people. Right?
Not everyone will know that.
On the base of class and on the base of anti-war. Sorry, Ben?
Not everyone will know that the lumpen are classless people, gangsters, that sort of layer of society, not the proletariat.
The people who don't even have the privilege
bank robbers,
to be exploited in the capitalist system. They cannot get jobs. They have no education. The people that are below the underclass, right?
So guys, I want to get Dust in. I mean,
let's get Dust in.
I
don't believe. Let me just say the last thing that Leo said. I don't understand the relevance at all.
Well, you brought it in. I didn't.
I don't get it.
What is the relevance of the Bolsheviks recruiting among the most racist, sexist level of society? It's because the socialist movement needs mass support, and it cannot be divided by lines of religion, gender, race, or any of these
we're not going to
lifestyle, social issues. We have to focus on class.
We're not going to be able.
That is the relevancy.
We're not going to be able to do that. I mean, Madison Avenue is not going to allow it. Capitalism is not going to allow that. One of their
Silicon Valley won't allow it either.
One of their games.
Avenue, and then there's
one of their games.
Silicon Valley.
Marlo, can we get Dust in?
Let's get
it really well. Is Steve Bannon? Steve Bannon is playing you guys like fiddle.
Can we let Dust talk?
Well, I just want to get this out. I don't think your dichotomies are genuine. I don't think you understand where the divisions take place and how they operate. I don't think you have even the most modest understanding of that. And I don't know if it's because you're not here or what, but let's let Dust talk.
I lived in the U.S. for 30 years. I think.
Yeah, but I know, but just doesn't mean you understand it. I don't.
You understand it.
Yeah, well, I do.
Well, I don't think you do. I don't think you do.
And
I think you're stuck in the antagonism again. I think you're absolutely stuck in the antagonism of the progressives versus the conservatives.
You don't know what you're talking about. Now you're talking about it.
Why are you so dismissive? Why not respond?
It's devolving into what I was wanting to avoid.
Billy Bob.
I wanted to hear Dust. Dust dropped out. He was good enough to come in, while he's working.
Isn't Leo the guy that put classical music down last time we had him on the show? How stupid is that?
Wait, what?
You put classical music down. You when I brought up Bartok.
What the fuck are you talking about? European classical music is a part of the aristocracy.
Listen,
I said it's aristocratic. It's aristocracy culture. That's all I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
And I said classical music from every continent, Korean classical music is the same. It's the music, the culture of the aristocracy.
Yes, like Lucy Lepard said, because the rich people keep all the best for themselves.
Dust is back.
That's all I said. Like, what? I didn't put down classical music. Okay. How stupid is that? What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Just what you said.
Can I interject?
What I said is correct. Classical music is a culture of the aristocracy.
You're both saying
And
I'm
that's
correct and
true
you're
in
not. I don't.
Africa. That's true
that's
in
because
Asia.
that's
That's
because
true
it's
in
quality.
Europe as well. That's
You
all I
didn't
said.
say anything
And that's
about
not a
the
stupid
quality of it.
statement. And that's
You
not a
didn't
stupid
say
statement.
anything.
That's a
You
factual
didn't
statement.
say anything about the quality of it, and you would have finished your sentence with rap. That's what you would have finished your sentence with, because
Why?
I've heard
Why do
I've
these?
heard what you have to say about rap.
Ben
As far
and
as I'm
Leo.
concerned,
Ben.
rap is crap.
Okay.
Dust.
Anybody who
Ben,
hates
can
rap today is a racist.
Yeah, I hate
Anyone who
rap.
hates rap today.
I hate
Because
rap.
rap is a part of our
Yes,
collective
that's
culture now.
because
If you hate rap, you're a
original
racist.
Kill the Cop
If you
guys,
hate rap, you're a racist.
all the original Kill
That
the
is the
Cop guys.
primary
Leo,
Listen, you're not looking
of
at
black
Madison
people
Avenue.
of this day and age. That
All
is the primary cultural expression of
Kill
black
the
people
Cop
in this
guys
day and age.
are now playing cops on
Our
TV.
lingo,
They're now
our
playing
language
cops
that
on
we
TV.
speak is
Please,
literally
Please,
evolving.
if you can't see through that,
This
you
is going well.
You can't see that was a capitalist
Okay.
You see,
bullshit.
avoiding
move.
the culture war and fighting the class war, that's not what this looks like. We are
You
fighting the
guys
class
are
war.
just
So
pandering to the capitalists.
perhaps
when
you
you-
can bring
when
on
when
the
you
slide.
Express
slide I'm-
admiration for that
The
trivia.
slide I'm sharing just to have a quick
That is
shift.
that is a classless analysis.
I'm
That
going to
is
try
such
to
a
say
shallow.
It's just,
That is a shallow.
It's just fucking making money, baby. That's all they're doing, baby.
You
Money.
think Mozart wasn't?
Ding.
You think Mozart wasn't?
No,
It
Mozart wasn't.
doesn't take away from the expression.
Right,
It is.
Mozart didn't. He didn't have the same economic system to even operate in.
This is
He had
ridiculous.
to do. He had to
This
get
is ridiculous.
patronage.
This is
He had to,
ridiculous.
if he wanted to work, he had to get patronage unless he had his own money.
This is
You
ridiculous.
don't know what
This is
you're
ridiculous.
like comparing apples and oranges. That's nonsense.
Can I
Jesus
get everybody's attention? So we lost
Yes.
Gus for a second, but Ben and Leo, I would like us not to defend ourselves. Let's just listen if we
Yeah,
can.
I was trying to
I
do
really
that.
wanted to hear Dust's critique. So Dust, I'm going to try and bring him back in. He's having some technical issues.
Yes, can you all
I
hear me?
wanted-
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had bad issues with internet. If I could just respond quickly,
It's your stage.
There's this idea that if I rightfully point out Trump's vile racism and attack on the most oppressed members of my community, that I somehow am supportive of Biden, when the absolute is the opposite is the truth. A majority of my political worth was anti-war work against Obama and spreading, exposing Obama using great American revolutionaries like Glenn Ford of the Black Agenda Report. That's been the majority of my my political experience. I do think there is a tendency of people who don't understand my community to confuse the right-wing manipulation of my community and the liberal stereotype of rural working class communities that is demonized by the liberals.
Dust. Can you expand
Which
on
simply
this?
doesn't exist. Which simply
Dust,
doesn't exist here.
Dust, you brought
We have
this up.
interracial. Yeah, we
Dust,
have
you brought-
interracial families. We
Dust.
usually apolitical.
I would like you to expand because you brought this up twice. The right-wing manipulation of your community. I would love for you to expand what that looks like. What is this? What are you talking about?
Okay, so if you look on the liberal spaces, maybe this is more in Europe and liberal communities here. If you look at the reason why transgenderism and gay rights is brought up, it's because the Democrats can be like, I'm in favor of these marginalized communities without changing any capitalist policies to benefit the working class. But if you go in rural America, the people who are bringing up transgenderism are the right-wing politicians, because they're manipulating the social backwardness of the population to vote against themselves for austerity politicians that are worse than their Democratic counterparts.
That sounds like a successful division of the population. Would you agree?
Yes, these are using to divide us. But the answer is not to attack transgender people. It's to attack these people based on their class, their austerity, and then build unity amongst all the people against these austerity politicians.
Yeah, we would all
Cool.
agree with
Yeah.
that. I think
Absolutely, we would.
that's what I've been saying. We need to uphold class analysis. We need to not
Yeah,
get
but
lost.
there's
in
another
the
thing
weeds.
you said. There's another thing you said that I deeply disagree with,
Who?
and that's the
Leo
idea
Leo.
that we should. That's the idea we shouldn't focus on race in the United States. When there is a liberal manipulation to look at race as a very superficial identity, cultural thing, or voting rights, something that would benefit the black bourgeoisie more than the working class, both black and white alike. But there is the real reality of national oppression in this country. And white people might be the majority overall, but if you go into the most exploited workforces, if you go in anywhere in the kitchens, you go into construction, you go in a lot of the low wage manufacturing, warehouse work, white
Yes.
people are a minority. White people
Yes.
are a minority in those positions. So if you're
Yes.
about class struggle, you're going to have an emphasis on black and brown people. And it has been black and brown people who have led the class struggle in these places, especially in the South. Like, I don't think you can tell people to shut about race and tell everyone that race is simply an identity issue when national oppression is a form of class oppression.
I didn't do
no
either
one
of those.
here said shut up about race.
Yeah, I was
have
wondering if
never in my
did you
life-
claim I did that?
Look, I am not.
Was that
I'm not
addressed?
only a person of color, yeah, who has lived in the U.S. for 30 years, who has been dehumanized for the shape of my eyes
Leo, I think
all of my adult life.
I'm a
But
lily white.
also, I have worked in the menial jobs. I've worked in the factory jobs, and I know that they are mostly black and brown people that work these horrible factory menial labor jobs. I fully know that, and I have never told anyone to shut up about race. Never. And neither has Jimmy Dore.
He did. He told them to calm down and stop talking about white supremacy. He told
He didn't say to stop. He never said stop talking about.
He did. He said
Yes,
it's not a
he
good
did.
campaign strategy. He did say that.
He did.
As a
I
campaign
watched
strategy,
the interview.
We should not focus on
Yes,
it.
he did.
No, I agree with him that we should not focus on race. We should focus on class, which is what does.
And national oppression is a type of class
Jimmy
oppression.
Dore?
National oppression is a type of class oppression.
It is, but you yourself just said that we must prioritize class.
And
which is
national
exactly the same
oppression,
thing that I'm
racism,
saying.
systematic racism is class. We're not going to raise wages without addressing police brutality, without addressing the criminalization. We're not going to address class and improved conditions without giving amnesty to undocumented workers. It's simply not going to happen.
Of course, we agree with that. Of course, race has to be a part of it. Of course,
and it'd be stupid to run a nationwide campaign.
Race is a very important
to run a nationwide campaign and not talk about police brutality, not talk about undocumented.
No one said not talk about it. No one ever fucking said don't talk about it.
Jimmy Dore
did. All I've ever said is the same thing that you said.
Wait, calm down, Leo. Please calm down. Wait,
all I said was the same thing that you just said a second ago.
I'm trying to understand who's being accused of what. Is this about the Jimmy Dore Cornell West interview?
Sure. It's the same thing. All I'm saying is the same thing that you just said yourself, Dust James. Like you just said, we must prioritize class struggle rather than race. That's the same thing.
We must prioritize national liberation and class because there's the two main contradictions within the United States.
I think what I said last week was
stop accusing me of telling people to stop talking about race. Like, what the fuck?
You've been accused.
That is disingenuous.
Okay, I'm not accusing you. It is a trend within the right, the people tailing the right over the legitimate struggles.
Who's am I being accused of tailing the right? I'm just trying to be specific.
I think when you sit there and you glorify Trump for trying to make peace deals with North Korea.
Oh, that's what it is.
Why Trump is murdering generals and carrying out coups, and actually increased.
Dust James.
No, he's
Google.
talking about me. I think. Okay, Leo, you see.
That's James. Google Trump funds black universities.
That's a
Tell
Bannon
us-
ploy. That's a Steve Bannon ploy.
What does that have to do with anything I'm saying?
Really?
It has a lot to do with everything that you're saying.
No, it doesn't. It has.
not-
It's a political ploy. It's what Steve Bannon has been putting over on you people for years. You know, if you have to go to
there's
that
a
game,
reason.
you can go to that game. Look, he supported black, universities. If we don't use it, we don't use it. But at least we have it in our playbook.
Okay,
That's
there's
just
a
political
reason.
bullshit.
And there are no ploys on the side of Biden.
No, there's a
Listen.
that's all ploy. It's
I think we
all
should hate
ploy.
both of them and not prefer either.
People,
But
go,
there's a
right.
There's a reason why 95% of black voters voted against Trump. There's a reason why the anniversary of the largest anti-war demonstration in the United States, the Chicano moratorium, changed their phrase from Raza sí, guerra no to Raza sí, Trump no, because he was rightfully hated for his blatant, disgusting racism. That really is a truly representation of this in racist imperialist system. I'm not saying that Biden's any better. I'm just saying that people rightfully hate Trump.
And
I
I
just
bet
don't
if you look into those donations to the universities, you would find that money did not go to the university.
That's a red
You
herring.
find
I
it-
don't think we should talk about that whole university thing. I think
no,
I have a
I-
right to
Listen,
respond.
I want to point out one big difference between you guys and me. Deng Xiaoping said,
Yeah, we're in
"To
Europe.
grow rich is glorious," but I follow Diogenes of Sinope, the Greek philosopher. The only place to spit in a rich man's house is in his face.
Yeah, okay. What I said last time, and I really am not going to
In
say
his
anything I'm
face.
going to regret, in an honest reconciliatory effort, is that I understand why socialism never took root in America, because everybody here, actually, including me, is a product of our environment, our particular conditions around us, and it's very different in Hungary than where you are. That's why I defer to you. But it is 2023, and a lot of the stuff of young Steve Bannon's era has changed. There are divisions in the ruling class which are causing divisions way downstream. And it looks like both the right that Dust talks about in the Deep South and the so-called urban left, some of these activisty groups, the PSL types, are doing the exact same
No,
thing.
PSL leans Democrat, but they actually ran against the Democrats. They have an anti-imperialist news show.
I guess I won't finish then. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm just saying I don't think it's fair to attack one of our left is backwards and undeveloped, but PSL is actually one of the better forces within it.
Seriously?
Yes. Like
Okay,
they
not
had
gonna
the
drop-
big yeah.
Not going to
go
drop any more names. No.
ahead. Yeah.
So it's interesting to me because there is this schism within the left, and we're shouting at each other, and I'm trying to figure out why. I'm trying to get to the bottom of what is the real difference between my position and Carlos' position, between me, Ben, and Leo's, and Dust and Carlos, and it's difficult for me to figure out where we actually disagree and where we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And
Why is it so difficult? You're just being faked out. It's like Wooter said, you're being lazy. You're being
Can I speak
faked out.
on behalf of
And a
Team
lot of
Leo
it,
and me?
a lot of it is your personal
Carlo,
sensibility.
before
people
going
that are
into
not like
personal
you.
ego-driven mania, can I say on Team Grey that that's exactly what we feel about you, but we don't want this fight. We want to listen to each other's perspectives and maybe learn something.
So Dust,
So
can you try and like steel man what you think we think and where you think we're wrong? Like steel man us. Don't straw man us, because I feel like I get a lot of straw man, but I want you to steel man me and then tell me why it's not correct.
Yeah, and if it's Ben, name Ben, okay?
Or it's probably Leo. It's probably Leo.
I mean,
Name
I
Leo.
listen to a lot of your stuff. I find it I would say we agree 95% of the time.
Yes.
Okay,
I agree.
but when it comes to when Jimmy, if you guys agree, I'm not going to accuse. If you guys agree that Donald Trump is somehow anti-establishment and less imperialist than Biden, then I disagree with that point. I think they're both imperialists, and the imperialist duopoly uses every force within it to do things the other can't do, all while on the same team. And I don't think we should be reaching out to people based on bourgeois political persuasions, but simply focus on class struggle, community organizing, and national struggle. Also focus on getting just the Black community to be the leaders against fighting police brutality, fighting the racist immigration laws. Because when the Black community and the brown community fights for itself, it actually improves the conditions of white workers. And once a white worker like myself, who grew up with 8 people in a 2-bedroom trailer down a mile-long road, my own community, it was the immigrant people that showed me love, took me in, and then I joined their struggle. And I realized that their struggle is my struggle. And I think that's the kind of message we need to get out to people. That we should stop identifying with whiteness or even Americans, but workers and oppressed people against the imperialist system, the international proletariat against imperialism.
And again, I'm not sure I disagree with any of that.
Me neither.
I mean, you know,
I'm on board.
At the beginning, you know, you talked about Trump, and you know, there might be a disagreement over, you know, because he is largely bourgeoisie, he's largely establishment. Like the establishment agrees with him on the vast majority of things. Like we have 95% agreement. Trump has agreement with the establishment on most things, but there's a few things that they disagree with, which makes him dangerous. And that's why they're going after him with the lawfare. And that's why they're keeping him from ever coming within 1,000 miles of the presidency again, because he's bad for their interests. He lacks a class consciousness. And I think the class conscious capitalists don't like him because he's in it for himself, right? He's not in it for the class. And that's one of the reasons that he's anti-establishment, and that the establishment hates him. But of course, he's just like them, like, you know, 95%, except he wants to be friends with Russia instead of balkanize Russia.
He doesn't. He doesn't want to be friends with Russia. That's
that.
Insanity. That's okay. He'll speak one thing out his mouth and speak another. Sure. He raised funds once pressed. He raised funds to the Nazis in Ukraine. He raised the sanctions. Yeah. I think Hillary Clinton helped put Trump into power because he thought it would be a better running person to run against. And then when they realized that they could use Trump as this thing that they could win elections on, when the masses of people, poor, black, brown people, came out in record numbers to vote Trump out of office and vote Biden, that wouldn't happen unless they put Trump into power in the first place. All it did was suck people into the imperialist duopoly. I think he was controlled oppositions from the beginning. Like they knew.
I think you're crucially wrong there, because I think Hillary pumped up Trump because she thought that I'll absolutely win against such a buffoon, and it turned out wrong. That's why Trump was
and they
president.
fell on their face. Why did the Democrats continued to back Trump as candidate? They were fine with Trump as candidates winning. They're not really scared of Trump or Trump policies, and they know they still have control, and they know the second he actually may go out of line, they can bring him back in. And I honestly don't think we, the working class, should pick sides in a battle amongst them. Their controlled opposition got hit down. Why do I give a fuck? What I give a fuck about is the working class and oppressed people in my community building against the entire.
Get hit down, mate. Controlled opposition doesn't get hit down.
It does. That's a policy.
Why have
that's
they
a policy
used
with the
the
United States? The U.S. will back dictators, disgusting dictators all the world, and then the second they try to do something for their country, they smack them down because they know they can do it. The same thing with Trump. Like, Trump was never legitimate opposition, and he was used for the purpose of manipulating masses of workers against the most exploited here. And we should not support MAGA. We should not support Trumpism. We should say fuck Trump, fuck Biden, and let's build amongst ourselves and take on the entire duopoly.
That's
so we
your
can
right.
make America great again.
Thank you, Dust. That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's your right as an American. It's a
Contemplating before
legitimate
the show
perspective.
today.
But I believe I can respond to that because I now think I know where this is coming from. Just by mentioning, which I did last time, that there are divisions among the ruling class. Trump is on one end. The Silicon Valley billionaires, the guys silencing you on every social media platform are on the opposite end, which is exactly where the people snuck in historically everywhere. You seem to have taken that to as an offense somehow. Why is that wrong? Every single revolution in history.
Because I don't support one over the other. And I
don't support one over the other. I don't support one over the other, but I do support absolutely paying attention to these things and actually sneaking into where there's weakness.
And I don't think he's a legitimate threat.
Okay.
If Trump was not a legitimate threat to the imperialist establishment, then why was Russiagate launched?
Why risk the validity of the FBI, the DOJ, weaponize them all against Trump if they're not afraid of him? I just don't get this perspective.
Yeah, why?
Because they knew that
they know they can do whatever the fuck they want. Yeah.
They knew. You're both talking at the same time, one after the other.
They knew it wouldn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. In the next election, Russiagate will not matter.
Yeah, because it failed, but it was an attempt.
Not because it failed, because it doesn't matter. Look, the deep state takes those chances all the time because they know no one's listening, that they can put it over on people. If the timing is right, if they can get away with it, they get away with it.
Everybody was listening to
Russiagate. If they get their war, they get their war. If they don't get their war, they don't get their war. If they get their propaganda out and it works, it works. If they don't, they don't. I still talk to people every fucking day that say Russiagate was for real. Trump did, yes. Trump.
Yeah, so people are listening. And it was a massive
every day.
It was a massive, concerted.
We know
organized,
that, Leo. We know that. You and I know that.
Can I finish my fucking sentence? Can I finish my sentence without you fucking screaming at me?
I know what you're gonna say.
Relax, everyone.
Can I finish my sentence without you screaming at me?
I know what you're gonna say.
No, you don't. You just said that.
Hey, brother, let Leo speak. I'd like to hear
things. You just said that they try things. Some things work, some things don't. People are not paying attention anyway. And I'm saying that's completely wrong. First of all, what we're asking is, why was it attempted? Why was Russiagate attempted to remove Trump from office? It was a massive, concerted, organized effort on media, on politics, on every fucking level to get Trump out of office. Why was this attempt?
Can I respond to the Trump?
Let me answer your question.
Todd's right.
Let me answer your question. Because it actually ended up working. Because it eventually led to January 6th, and now they're taking down all these ninnies who were
Russiagate led to January 6th.
I was down to Capitol. Down at the Capitol, how many fucking times for demonstrations where I saw left-wing people arrested for next to goddamn nothing. So they're just emulating that. And so January 6th happened because they put a Russiagate out there. To that extent, it was effective. The problem they've got now is it's not effective in the way they thought it was because Trump's popularity remains the same. One thing we have to look beyond here is the name Trump. We're getting hung up on that name. And that's not what's operating here. Trump is simply an egotistical puppet. And
you just affirmed what we've been saying.
They're playing him like
I'd like to respond to Leo's question as well.
Yeah, no need to shout, guys. I mean, I get your perspective, your Washington perspective, Carlo. I think I got Dusty's, North Carolina perspective.
I don't think I put my own perspective. I think there was forces within the ruling class that did not like aspects of Trump. And there was also portions of the ruling class that loved aspects of Trump, and I think the ruling class overall,
And I think
Trump
now you're getting somewhere.
was a positive for them overall, because in the places where maybe they didn't like him, maybe he was too much of an honest face on imperialism, maybe he, for his own opportunistic reasons, would
That's
cater
exactly what I
to
said.
too much to the anti-war sentiment for his own popularity, not with any real ability or
No,
a plan on doing
Not out
it,
of principle.
but he would do it. But there was ways in which Trump was a huge benefit
tell me those
to
things, because
imperialism
you
and
just
the working class. And
I'm-
what it was, well, first of all, Trump was able to get Trump. You thought Obama was able to put black and brown workers asleep and get them to support the democratic imperialist part of the system. Trump, the negative, like they used him as like, oh, superficial identity on top of imperialist policy. Here is literally this dude telling people that the most exploited people are rapists and criminals. What did that do to black and brown people? They wrongly supported the imperialist system. They came out and huge numbers to vote for Biden. That's another thing. That's something Trump did. Another thing Trump did is he emboldened the worst aspects of our society. The Proud Boys, the Neo-Confederates, the Klan. They saw him as a representative in the federal establishment. And so it did two things. It got masses of people to support the Democrats and emboldened the worst and disgusting aspects of our society. If Trump would have came to power, Charlottesville never would have happened. And Heather Heyer, our comrade with the IWW, would still be with us today. And it created massive division. And also with the anti-war, they said Trump loves Russia. Trump never fucking loved Russia. But when you tell, when you go to a black person, when I go to a working class, he did. Trump never gave a fuck about Russia. Okay, but when you go, because he only cares about himself. He doesn't give a fuck about Russia. He's only out for himself. But when the Russiagate narrative and putting Trump in league with Russia, what it did was it put the most disgusting white supremacist face associating with Russia, when Russia has been giving grain, has been giving fertilizer to the people of Africa, has been supporting the Venezuelans. So now, because of democratic media, when I go to a working class black or brown person, which I constantly do, and I tell them I'm in favor of Putin, I love what Putin's doing, they say you're a racist. And that's part of what Trump manipulation has been able to do, and psychological methods.
With 8 years difference and unpredictable outcomes of the war in Ukraine, so I don't think that should be a straight line as you presented it. But you are right. I understand that.
And also, I'd add that the Soviet Union has such a strong reputation in Africa as being a defender of freedom movements and all over Africa, and the United States. Anyone with a little education knows that the United States was exactly the opposite. Was responsible for the death of Lumumba, Sankara, and Nkrumah, and untold other African leaders are in their exile. If anybody wants to see what the United States does, they should read John Stockwell's book, In Search of Enemies, about Angola, and see how the United States played all three of these the MPLA and Jonas Savimbi and the third movement, the smaller one, against each other in a massive civil war to ultimately let the oil fall into the hands, which it has done, into the hands of Western corporations. So
Doug,
I mean, that's
respond directly to this point here about Trump being an ignorant outsider and messing up the geopolitical plans of, the bipartisan clique that wanted to, utilize Ukraine as a weapon against Russia and to balkanize Russia ultimately. So Do you see that Trump could have caused, could have derailed those plans by maybe 4 years?
No, because Trump.
I was asking Dust, Carlo.
Yes, but I want to point out that you've just. Trump
the president doesn't have any real power to do that.
He was the first one to send weapons to Ukraine. Jesus.
Obama, by the way.
No, it's Trump.
Oh, I would say the ruling establishment knows they don't have the power to do that, and they can revoke their power at any minute. And when they put them in there, they knew what they were doing.
All right, can I tie a knot on this? I get your perspectives, I really do. I think I'm closer to it. But to sum up, I do agree with a lot of what you had to say. One is he is an ignoramus. He's a reality TV show host, a businessman out for himself alone. That's it. But what my point was last time was bringing someone like that into what is called the deep state, the permanent state, whatever you want to call it. Putin calls it that, the people behind the decisions. Most people, a lot of the people who voted him in wasn't about black, white, this policy, that policy. They saw him as a wrecking ball. Okay. That is what a lot of people, they were fed up with Obama and then, black, whatever, Republican, Democrat. And they saw, I'm fed up. It's getting worse every year for me and my family. And I want a wrecking ball in there. I think that would have been my point. And I'd like to thank you, Dust, because you paraphrased me and Comrade Jyoti Bra, who you might not agree with on different issues. It doesn't matter. We don't agree on everything. But I also said that him saying the quiet part out loud, it sent America's reputation down the drain way before Biden. And that's always good news for the American working class if the machine, the well-oiled industrial machine, is slowly losing power and breaking down. That is where you get in. That is where the working classes gain power. I mean, I do recommend reading. I'm not being condescending. Just look into the successful revolutions, not the failed ones.
What strikes me is when I ask to hear where we disagree from you guys, and then 95% of what you say I agree with, and I'm still confused by the whole.
I'm trying to clear that up too, man.
Because every time you talk, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So why are we shouting at each other in disagreement? Like, what is the bottom fucking line? I don't know. I think we're all comrades.
We're all trying to clear it up.
It's so nuanced and slight. Whatever it is that is causing this disagreement. It's kind of
actually.
A guy takes
can I be funny for a second? I actually have to disagree that the disagreement is very small.
Okay.
I think it looks, sometimes it is small, sometimes it is on superficial issues, and sometimes it's about prioritizing, right? But I think there are very deep ideological conflict between the left in the West, who have been shaped, their political subjectivity has been shaped by life in the imperial core, where certain conditions, and the leftism of the global South. I think there's a deep rift here. For example, what Carlos said about hating money and hating the rich only, as a blanket statement, as a fundamentalist Western leftist credo, that is absolutely not the global South left. There are deep ideological rifts there.
I disagree with Carlo on that.
I'm just a quick
people from poor countries. From poor countries, we love fucking money.
Leo,
we want to be rich.
I disagree with Carlo on that.
And if you say you don't want to be rich, you're lying.
Leo.
I disagree with Carlo on that. I don't think oppressed people here have conditions far more like the third world than people of Europe do.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. And the working class want to be rich.
Yes, I agree. What I'm saying is, I disagree with Carlo on that.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think
that's a Madison Avenue ploy that's been around.
Socialism is about making everybody rich.
I think Deng Xiaoping stabilized the Chinese Revolution.
You guys are really
something else. They had great.
Get rich quick. Oh, it's the get rich quick
with
scheme. That's what we've been reduced to.
Socialism is about getting rich.
What a joke.
Me and Carlo disagree with that. I think Carlo.
The only positions in the world.
What a joke.
Can I say I'm not global South? I
don't trust anybody to take the shit on a golden toilet.
Before, can you finish a short thought?
I'd spit in his face.
Fine. I'm just Eastern Europe, but Eat the Rich never would have taken root in Hungary, not even under the 40 years of socialism. It was all about rising, all about the next generation, all about building a better world. Those were the potent messages. Eat the Rich would have never worked here, never will.
I agree.
You
There's
can do both.
Yeah, that's not the only position. Get rich quick or kill the rich. That's just not the two positions in the world.
You can gain a lot of nutrition.
I would like to. I'd
There's
like
a
to
lot
respond.
of nutrition in the rich.
Go.
I'd like to respond to Ben, and I think, in a way, branding anti-establishes, being anti-establishment, and branding being pro-Russia with the most vile, disgusting forms of white supremacy, actually hurts anti-establishment position. Actually, it hurts solidarity with the Russian intervention. And I think that's another negative aspect.
Can I bring in the slide? This will be, I think, interesting to everybody. Really, no upset feelings, because the guy on the left is a billionaire. Sorry, he's been photoshopped to turn into a Russian general. I hope you can see this, that's because it's funny. Elon Musk, we've heard the news that he confirmed that last year sometime he suspended the, what do you call it, the system. It's not Skynet. What is he? You know, the Ukrainian Starlink connection.
Starlink.
Yeah, sorry about that. But it was in the Black Sea and the Crimea region, right? And for him, he's now branded all kind of Putinist, anti-American traitor. And Elizabeth Warren, one of those progressives who was in Kiev, I think 3 times so far, but one of those big progressive dreams like AOC was before she turned absolute traitor, is the one who is now urging a fucking investigation into Elon Musk's person. Now, Lenin took the money of the Germans. He took the train from the Germans and overthrew the Tsar. And that's what I look at billionaires. I don't see like Elon Musk. I see his position in the system of different castes of millionaire. And I think that's much more useful than saying that's right wing or that's the billionaire class, a monolithic class. There are divisions there for us to exploit. That has always been my point. And Elon Musk seems to find himself, gentle Elon Musk, as Ramzan Kadyrov endearingly called him, I'll always use that name, is in the pivot of this. He seems to be, you know. He's going against one group with the other. I'm not saying he's an angel. He's a failed engineering student who comes from money from South African mines. You know, I'm not that's all true. But can he make good steps like cleaning up X, formerly Twitter, which really has improved in the past half a year? If you're looking for just news from Ukraine,
hell
from
no.
Russia.
They have
shut
down black radicals. They have shut down black radicals left and right since
and
Elon
Scott Ritter,
took over.
I qualifiedly agree. I agree. There have been voices.
It has been a major escalation against black nationalists and hard left figures that represent a revolutionary potential within our population. There's been maybe they're not suppressing the anti-establishment right. They've gone hard on the revolutionary left since he took over.
Well, they silenced Scott Ritter. They tried to do it to Garland Nixon. Let's not think of this as just left. There's all kinds of silence. NAFO has been silenced, which I think is great news for the platform. But yes, you're right. I give you that point. But my point was,
I think that's
his position in the differences between the bourgeoisie is what we should be paying attention to. Do you understand? But not again. I sound condescending. I know I'm the white European, I guess, tailist or something.
Look,
I agree.
Weaknesses to exploit. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, that's thank you.
The national bourgeoisie plays a role in anti-imperialism, and they always have.
Yeah.
Not within the imperialist countries themselves. They're imperialists.
I don't know, but the French Revolution was mostly the petit bourgeois, the little, they had little stores in the towns, the urban.
The revolution was against the
king.
royalty.
Yes.
Okay, the bourgeois of the oppressed nations plays a role in anti-imperialist nation. Trump is an imperialist, regardless he disagrees and has fights on how to do imperialism.
But look, when imperialism comes into contradiction with the interests of the national bourgeoisie within the core,
that's when you look. Yes, that's my.
That's
point.
when the national bourgeoisie of the imperialist core can also play a role.
They've always used counter gangs. You know this.
Look, there are German bourgeoisie right now who are absolutely against decoupling with China.
Yeah, and Scholz and Baerbock, like really big industrial.
They're still
Same is
imperialists.
true in the United States.
Yeah,
No,
sure, maybe,
it-
but they're
it-
against. But practically speaking, are we practical people? Do we want to look at the immediate reality that we are in right now? If we are practical people, if we want to be pragmatic, we have to recognize that there are rifts within the bourgeoisie. Some are pro-imperialist wars, and some are against imperialist wars.
So they're for
That's a
soft
reality.
power.
That's a
They're still
reality.
imperialists.
No, I think we're
But
not our
that is the
allies.
reality. But how do we navigate that? What do we do with that? Do we call the anti-imperialist bourgeoisie right wing? And
There is no anti-imperialist bourgeoisie in the United States.
What do you call Russia? Okay, we're confusing something. Bourgeois is one definition. We don't have to go into that. But imperialism is a global system. I think that's a confusion here. For example, the bourgeois of Russia, owners of big banks of industry, I would never in my life, right now, especially categorize them as imperialists. I mean, they haven't done to Africa what Europe has done. They haven't done to South America what the US has done.
Russia's an anti-imperialist country. Russia stands with the global South. I
But
don't
they-
think it's fair to,
But they,
to
as
say
well as
any
China,
bourgeois within Europe or
But
the United
point-
States is anti-imperialist.
but
And
what
if
I'm-
they're
but
and they're
that's-
easily controlled.
the
If you look
finer-
what's going on in Europe,
the
they
finer-
squat them down. They have no say.
Yeah, but what my final point is, within Russia, there are bourgeois people. Also within China, you should be aware
That's
of
a
this. Even-
semi-oppressed country. It's not an imperialist country. Russia's not an imperialist country.
yeah, I mean,
Fine, okay, those countries are
James is
100%.
right. These are countries victim to imperialism.
But within the US, don't you think there are wings of the bourgeoisie who are against this expansionist and money printing stuff, in that they're functionally anti-imperialist and trying to move people in that direction? Why do you find that impossible? Why?
Because those are the same people who
I'm not
who are
talking
the
about
most
Trump.
vicious.
I'm
are
not
the
talking
most
about Trump.
vicious against oppressed and working people here.
I'm not talking about Trump.
And that is also an aspect of imperialism. I'm not
Okay.
talking about Trump either. Mr. My Pillow, Mr. Elon Musk, portions of
now do Ron Paul.
the upper bourgeoisie.
Do Ron
Ron
Paul.
Paul,
I know
Ron
he's si-
Paul
I know he's
is
a silly
is an
libertarian.
austerity lobby. Nothing
I know
more.
he's a
They
silly
never
libertarian.
listen to him.
But look
They
at
never listen to him on the war. They
It
what they
doesn't
do
matter
is
if you listen to him or not.
They don't
Listen
listen to him, but look
we
at
know
all
what
he
he
he's
says.
a tool, but they're never going to implement his policies because they're
Sure,
firmly in
but still,
control.
he says what he says.
Yeah, they allow him to say what he says because Ron Paul backs up the racist, anti-worker, anti-welfare narrative that allows for the super exploitation of people in the oppressed regions, including the South.
Yeah, but we're talking about one thing, and you keep bringing up the other.
Because they're linked.
Still,
Because they're linked.
whether anyone listens to him or not, whether
No.
he's racist or not,
Because he takes the
Ron Paul
LaRouche
has been
libertarian.
consistently
He
and
takes
very
the.
vehemently.
He's an
very
austerity
strongly
lobby. They're never going to
talking
listen to
about,
his
why can't I
anti-war
speak?
policies.
Why
Go
can't I
ahead.
speak
Wait,
without
wait.
you two screaming?
Go ahead.
Because
I'm sorry.
you
Go
were
ahead.
trying to answer your question.
Whether Ron Paul is racist or not, whether people listen to him or not, whether he is allowed to speak for some cynical reason or not, he has been consistently, very vehemently, very strongly putting forth the anti-war position. Consistently for Iraq, for Afghanistan, for Syria,
Yes.
and now for Ukraine.
Yes,
And what good
because
have any of those wars
let me ask
Let
you
me
a
answer your
question.
question
Let me
for
ask you.
you,
Let me
Leo.
fucking finish. Let me finish.
You're finished.
I'm not fucking finished. Does Ron Paul represent a section of the bourgeoisie or not?
He
No.
does. Yes, he does.
No.
No, I'll tell you
Does
why.
he does not.
He represents the lower portion of the petty bourgeois.
Right, so he
that's
does
who he-
represent
and-
a portion of the bourgeoisie.
and
So he does.
The very, very lower portion that has absolutely no power, and they're usually
Right, so he does represent a
manipulating
section
them.
of the bourgeoisie, though.
Actually,
does.
it hurts. The policies that Ron Paul helps implement, which are austerity policy, ends up hurting those lower level bourgeoisie because then they have to. Then those workers don't have any health care. Then they don't. Then they have to pay higher wages because there's no welfare.
Sure.
Granted.
Yeah,
Yes,
Sure,
this is.
sure. We agree with
he
all
doesn't
of
actually
Granted.
truly libertarian policies. Libertarianism
that. Of course not.
is
There we
nothing
go.
but a
Libertarianism.
manipulation to
Right.
support austerity against the working class.
Of
and
course,
oppressed.
we know that. We know that very well. We understand that very well.
And
But
he
the truth
uses-
is still, but the point still stands. He
No.
does represent a section of the bourgeoisie, which
No, but
is anti-war.
But he's not anti-war. That's a lie. He claims on Lyndon LaRouche. When I was in college, Lyndon LaRouche, they set up these tables outside the university, and they used the anti-war movement to further this libertarian bullshit. They said, come on to the meetings. We're anti-Vietnam War. You go to the meetings, and they tried to indoctrinate you into the stupid libertarian logic, which you carry down if you looked at it, you say, well,
I got a
you
question
got a
for
pothole in front of your
Here-
fucking house. Who the fuck is going to repair it? You
Okay.
or my neighbor? Who, it was so stupid when you got
I
to
have
the
a
logic
question
of
for
it.
Dust, and
Here's
I think-
another example of
It was a
libertarianism.
fraud.
Libertarian
Hey,
is
hold
not
on. Hey,
against the
Dust.
police state. Libertarians support usually
Nobody's a
support the
libertarian,
police.
Yeah, we
Dust.
know that.
We
We're
all
not
agree with
arguing
you.
for
That's Ron
libertarian.
Paul
Here-
policy.
Here's my
Dust,
general
yes, we know
question.
that.
Can
We
I
know that.
can I send a general question to you guys? But preferably, I'd like to have Dust try and answer it.
Yes.
It's very basic. So I think we can agree that there are appropriate and inappropriate ways to try and unify with cultural conservatives. But should we as communists try and reach out and include cultural conservatives in a mass movement?
Yes.
That's a yes or no. That's a yes,
Yes.
or no.
100% yes.
Okay.
But
Same
we
in
don't
Hungary,
do it by
exactly the
tailing
same.
Trumpism. We don't
Okay.
do it by
So-
repeating the lies. We
So
don't do it
our
by backing the
disagreement-
libertarians. We do it by class appeals.
I
solely.
didn't back anyone. I was
Universal
asking-
class appeals.
I have
So
to
our
echo Leo
disagreement,
there.
there might be a disagreement over the exact proper way to reach out to cultural conservatives, but we all agree that we have to include people who are cultural conservatives. Do we have to
Yes.
convert cultural conservatives to liberalism before we allow them to be part of our team?
Liberalism? No.
No.
Do we have to turn cultural conservatives into cultural liberals before they join our team? Do we have to
No.
make the religious people not
No.
religious?
No.
Do we have to
No.
make the
No.
Absolutely not.
Who is saying this bullshit?
Carlo,
Who is
yes
saying
or
this?
no? Carlo, yes or no?
Oh, what? I'm not a communist.
No,
I mean,
You guys have your
question.
own. You guys have your way of going about it. What Billy Bob is suggesting is
No.
that there's a link between the whatever you're seeing the right wing as and communism. You go. I'm not a communist, so I can't really participate
There
in
isn't.
that thing. I have no horse in the race.
Fine.
I have no dog.
If you
in
want to
the
duck out,
kennel.
you can duck out. But Carlo said last week, and I think Leo just said a minute ago, that it's like we're talking beside each other. It's like apples to oranges. I really feel that's what the conversation is like. We really try to show the divisions in the ruling class and how that help us. Whereas I think you're talking about something else. And every time you speak, I agree. Dust. I do.
I don't
you-
think they help as much as you think they do.
Yeah, I got to tell you. Listen, when I quote Diogenes of Sinope about spitting in a rich man's face, it's because what I'm talking about is when you become a rich man, it's a process like anything else. Like what Billy Bob has become a nurse, Dust is a truck driver. Leo has a clothing line. Ben does computer graphics for
Love
people.
your work, brother.
Okay, so that's a process, and that forms who you are.
Yeah.
So I got this. I put out when Musk got this huge amount of U.S. taxpayer money for one of his projects. I protested online. This Indian engineer writes me back, and he goes, "Musk never got public money." So it's easy with the fucking goddamn computer. I sent him like 50 articles about how much money he's gotten from me, the U.S. taxpayer. So yeah, if I want to spit in that motherfucker's face, if I meet him, I'm going to spit in his face.
Fine.
If I hear about Donald Trump taking another dump on his golden toilet, I'm going to spit in his face.
Fine.
These people go through a process. Look at this creep Bezos. You know, who's got all of these fucking CIA-oriented contracts.
I don't think this helps the discussion, what he's saying. I agree with his general sentiment, although I don't think resentment of the rich is the best political strategy.
It's not
overall.
resentment. It's seeing them for what they are.
Yeah, they are exploiters.
Yeah, within American society, that is what they become. But can we do away with this? That immediately, if I say they can do something that's actually a benefit to you guys, then you say I'm Team Trump or Team Musk. I'm neither of those things.
No.
I'm just saying pay attention to what these divisions, because
I don't think they're helping. These divisions are helping us whatsoever. And I think we do need to reach out to so-called Trump supporters. Yeah. But I would say the people who voted Biden have just as much, if not more, revolutionary potential as a Trump supporter.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. Again, I'm just saying that you are in an
and the only way to get to the people is class struggle. The only way to organize the people for effective fight against the wars, against the conditions we face, is in the factories and in the neighborhoods. And we're not going to do it by parroting any of the bourgeois positions.
Right.
No,
we have to
just
do it
talk to them
without emphasizing gender politics, for example.
Or don't let a MAGA hat turn you down. Fuck, talk.
I don't think we should overemphasize. I think there is a portion of the city left that comes to our community and looks down on us and overemphasizes gender politics when they should be just trying to organize people. But at the same time, you got right-wing people who will try to divide workers by demonizing trans people. So when anti-trans bigotry becomes a stumbling block for organizing, it has to be opposed.
Sure, I agree.
I guess I'm going to be the cultural conservative, being Eastern Europe, but I'm with the LGB portion of LGBT because historically that's always been in Hungary, same as everywhere else. But I mean, you're taking away
trans people are killed in the fucking streets here.
Yeah,
yes. and anti-trans bigotry puts austerity politicians in the power.
And trans children are being taken away from their parents if they don't affirm their gender. You can't tell.
That's not happening here. I don't know the conditions in Europe, but here,
this is
like
Europe.
almost,
This is US. This is California, baby. You want me to send you the article? I mean,
that's a different country.
I'm not
me as well.
I'm not going to be on that bandwagon ever.
I think the anti-trans opportunist wing overhypes a problem that doesn't exist to support the lower portion of the bourgeois and reactionary social conservative policies.
Thank you.
Fine.
So there's a cultural divide, right? There's communists.
There's less of one than you think.
Well,
they overemphasize it.
I'm just commenting on in this program, in this program itself, there's some conservative leaning and then there's some liberal leaning.
I'm not liberal leaning. I am pro-worker, and anything that hurts that, and bigotry, sexism, racism hurts our ability to organize and divides the working class. My primary emphasis is class struggle.
Good. Again, complete agreement.
Yes, and if Sinop is a liberal, I'm a liberal.
I would put you in with the old left radical progressive, which are our allies. You're my ally, brother. You don't got to be a communist to be my ally.
I'm not a communist.
I would put him in the same place. He's come on, you're the 60s hippie. That is. Exactly.
I wasn't a hippie. Listen. Yeah, I don't want to get personal about that, but I was out of the whole for a while. I was out of the whole movement because I was a single parent when I was 20 years old. I had to raise my own child.
There's militant progressive working class folks
worked in warehouses.
I got you, brother. Not everybody that supported militant progressivism was a rich hippie, and I think that's a stereotype that is also incorrect. There's a lot of progressive sentiments within the working class community.
My father was a barber. He barely made a living. I didn't put you in that camp. I didn't put you in that camp. My mother was raised in an orphanage in Ohio. She had a 6th grade education. There were no
Okay.
books in my house when growing up. Rosalie jokes
I
about
think-
it. My wife jokes about it. So, you know,
yeah.
fuck
I
Brother
that.
Carlo is a good example of a working class person that doesn't fit this right wing stereotype that the right tailing so-called communist
What is
like to
that
cater
me?
to.
Come on, I guess I didn't get the definition. I was meaning a 60s anti-war
I'm talking
radical.
okay,
Did
like
the hippie-
Haas and fucking Hinkle and all these crazy fucking internet people.
So again,
You
it's
know,
not us. It's crazy internet people. That
Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah,
Dore
yeah.
was the last thing.
Jimmy Dore is in with them. I think Midwestern Marx leans that way.
I got to tell you, one of our guests, Alex Suarez, he was our guest, or
Yeah.
somebody swore.
He's
Right.
a comrade of mine from
He
from
wrote
Florida.
this morning. That's right. That's right. He wrote this morning about Jimmy Dore, how all of the people following him now are the right wing, the rabid right wingers, because he's changed his policy so dramatically. And I wrote that months ago, and
true.
it's
Okay,
obvious.
so it
He's-
seems there's no
he
disagreement
turned out to be an
except for-
opportunist.
except for outside internet leftists like Haas, Hinkle, and Jimmy Dore. Is that the basis here?
I think I don't know. I think
Wait, hold
I
on.
think some of the European folks and some of the
Is that
folks
me again?
outside the United
Because I'm
States, yeah,
European.
some of the people from the bourgeois, the liberal cities and European place don't truly understand the significance of the national question in the United States, or a lot of the progressive social character that we actually have, and they like to like defend the attacks on the straw man version of us, and when that's not us. A lot of us are like Carlo. A lot of us are like me. We're tolerant of LGBT people. We come from interracial families and interracial and international communities. We're not vehemently anti-immigrant like Trump.
Jimmy Dore is no different.
I don't get it either.
Well, he is
Jimmy
now.
Dore is no
Do you-
different.
Okay,
than you.
Jimmy Dore loves fucking Tucker Carlson.
And Tucker Carlson needs to be cancelled because he met with this right-wing Peruvian, not Peru.
No, Tucker Carlson is the most reactionary anti-immigrant bigot on fucking television, and he got a huge fucking salary to do it.
He doesn't have a salary. Well, he got a salary now from X
Yeah.
or formerly Twitter, but now he's
From
completely
Fox, he was on Fox News.
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
he was a
already
little.
he was
But
kicked
come
off.
on, all I'm saying, don't get upset about internet personalities, but when he was on Fox, he sold the war. Now he's completely anti-war. He talks to Vucic. He wants to talk.
He's
wants to
still
talk to Putin,
militantly anti-immigrant. And
okay,
that
so-
is a type of imperialism, internal national oppression and super exploitation of our undocumented coworkers is a part, an aspect of imperialism, and it is part of what we have to fight against in our communities to build socialism and build workers' power.
so,
Yeah, and we know
There is no
US
place for Tucker
US
Carlson.
Americans,
so he's
US
and we
wrong.
Americans
know the
always
loop.
conflate.
We
He's-
know the
US
loop.
Americans
We
always
talked about the
conflate
loop here
Come
on
on,
this
come
show
on. No reason for
so
this.
many times. The U.S. imperialism destroys a country. People are forced to come here. Some of them are forced to come here
True.
as part of that destruction. We've covered that loop a million times. That's what the dust is talking about. We know that loop.
True, but what
And-
I'm trying
and
to say is
fucking
Right,
Carlson's
but
right in
there
the
are
middle of
two
it.
things. But
Tucker
you
is
know,
critically wrong on immigration. Does this mean we don't?
He's not politically wrong. He's a
on
fucking
China also.
tool.
I said critically, but that means
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't pay attention to any of the work he's doing because that seems to be your slate. This
No,
perfectionist-
because a lot of this is the manipulation you guys understand. You guys take the word of everyone at their word for it.
I don't have
that's
another
what
choice.
they fucking mean.
I do the
But
same with
you
you.
got to look at how people are used. These people within the working class, when they say something good and something negative, the ruling class is going to use their negative aspect to further their agenda and suppress the other. If you look at what people do and not what they say, Tucker Carlson is an enemy of the people, and he's used to get people who have progressive ideas on the war to attack and oppress our most exploited co-workers.
Todd, I'm with you. It's interesting. I mean, I don't think anybody who has some sort of imperfection, let's call it half of his views are completely vile. I don't believe that He's nothing, he says.
But
or
what
does.
views are actually carried out and what views are actually put into
not-
reality? It's the
not
negative
views,
ones.
but he came out against the war. He talked to Vucic, the Serbian minister. He is trying
And
to
then,
organize
and
to
then,
talk
he,
with
and
Vucic.
then
He talked to
he
Orban, my prime
branded,
minister, when
he
no one
branded
did.
being pro-Russia as being violently
Can you two
anti-immigrant.
cheeseburger
They
stannies?
said.
Can you two cheeseburger stannies? Can you two school shootingsville citizens stop shouting at people and interrupting like what
No.
everyone says? Like we
No.
cannot finish a sentence without you screaming at us.
Well,
We can't
there's
have
a
a
reason
conversation
to do that.
if you interrupt.
I'm sorry,
every
I get
single
passionate.
one of
You.
I
Ben's and
apologize for my
sentences.
decor.
I
You
think
cannot.
it's interesting, but
Don't
it is
Typical
apologize,
fucking
Gus.
cheeseburgers.
Don't
Cheeseburger
apologize.
fucking people. You
I
have
talked
to
about their
dominate
naivete
every
last
fucking
week.
conversation.
They didn't want
You
to
have
hear
to
it.
dominate every fucking conversation, just like an imperialist.
Yeah,
No one
that's the way it
enjoys
is. Yeah,
one enjoys
what
imperialist
an odd
hubris.
comparison.
Imperialist arrogance.
What a
like
I'm not an
imperialist
imperialist,
arrogance.
brother.
Imperialist arrogance.
What a
saturates
ridiculous trope.
your personality.
What an
Carlo.
absurd trope.
Guys, no one is
Guys,
benefiting
What
from
an
this.
absurd trope.
Guys,
When
Guys,
someone
so I
praises Tucker
I
Carlson,
think-
it pisses me off. When someone
Yeah,
praises
no,
Tucker Carlson,
so
I
that's
get
the thing.
pissed.
So there's
Did
two
I praise him?
interesting perspectives
Did
on
Ben
Tucker
praise
Carlson,
him?
right? So
Did Ben praise
Dust,
him?
Dust brings up a good point about Tucker Carlson, how the ruling class will make sure that his negatives are far more influential than the positive things he does. They're going to try
That's
and,
true. That manipulation.
minimize the positive things he says. And they want to, they're going to embrace the negative things he says for their benefit. And that's true. But nobody is perfect. And when we have somebody that has that kind of a platform saying certain things like, hey, this war against Russia is dumb, like, how can we not support and be happy about that? Like, we have to be glad that's being said.
He's also
No,
branding
big
that
platform.
position with vile racism. He's also
Okay,
branding
fine.
that
The
position with
problem is,
vile racism.
this is where it comes in. Listen, Carlson doesn't. He's anti-war, but he doesn't believe it. That's the point we're trying to make. It's a hustle.
It is a hustle.
hustle.
Fine.
Hustle. They're
I get-
lying.
When
They're
did Tucker
lying.
Carlson give a fuck about black radicals until the Uhuru movement got raided by the FBI? Like, I've been supporting Uhuru
And
for
he
fucking
embraced.
decades. That
He embraced the
no,
Uhuru.
he used them as a political ploy and a
That's
tool.
right.
Okay, I mean, the ruling classes, when he was employed by them, they spat him out. But you're right about them manipulating his message even right now. I mean, picking out the negative and using that against people and ignoring the positive. No one in the world spoke to my prime minister other than Tucker. No one
I think
did.
it comes down to the communist strategy as
What
well.
is go? Yeah.
Okay, like brother Billy Bob correctly hear me say, people within the bourgeoisie are going to be only used and allowed to carry out their negative aspects, and they're going to be allowed to say whatever the fuck they want. That's never going to become policy ever fucking ever. And I think what we need to do is we need independent power. We cannot praise anybody within the ruling class structure, within the bourgeoisie.
Anybody again?
Okay. What we need to do is we need to empower the people and get them to build the independent power. And that doesn't come from discussing the differences within the ruling class. What it comes from is actually mobilizing people along the contradictions about class and national oppression.
I mean, I do agree with
I
that.
don't think
That
we
is-
should focus on these differences as much as you guys do.
what
I think we
do-
need to focus on the contradictions and mobilize people to fight for themselves and their communities.
Dust, absolutely. I think that's the perfect way for American working class thing to do. But you're on a show, and what we do here is try to educate people about what's going on in the world. And for me, those divisions in the ruling class are important. I don't think I praised anyone in there. I don't understand where I pissed you and Carlo off.
You do downplay their negative aspects.
I don't cancel people, I guess, is the problem here. Like Tucker.
You don't
because I don't
recognize
mind.
people who are enemies that are enemies.
Me and Ben recognize that the bourgeoisie, while they are the enemy of the working class, can serve temporary
And so did Lenin. And
for
so did Stalin.
anti-war, for immediate projects. That's
Maybe
all
we can manipulate it, but the only way we're going to manipulate them is if we use the conditions they create to funnel people to infrastructure we control. We don't have any of that fucking infrastructure.
No, right.
Well,
I think we need to
top
build that
priority right
infrastructure.
now is to stop escalation. Top priority.
Our priority
right
is to build working class infrastructure.
Top priority right now is to stop escalation of the war in Ukraine and to stop a war against China.
Our main priority in the United States is to build working class controlled infrastructure that can take power once the empire falls.
Okay,
we're not
the
gonna.
Soviets.
You can't do that.
You build the Soviets, but if we go up in a cloud, then there's not much building to be done.
But we can't. We're not going to get any say whether the war happens or not because we don't have any independent power.
Yeah.
We don't have any power to even back people within the bourgeois who are more soft on the war.
People
if we're going
to people that like Tucker Carlson talk anti-war points to millions of people. He's building a large
and what do those people do?
Can you stop interrupting me?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Tucker Carlson has built a broad-based working class anti-war coalition more than you, more than me, more than any of us.
He has not. What coalition?
Fuck
There's
no.
coalition.
The fucking Answer Coalition and PSL has built a legitimate working class radical intellectuals, oppressed people. They have done far more to build anti-war than the fucking Tucker Carlson's ever fucking thought of doing.
Okay, well, we can measure by various.
I don't want to get into this.
Tucker Carlson has reached millions of people on Fox, and now I mean,
and what do those people do?
Work in other ways, so they both have contributed.
Wait,
they vote Trump.
They vote
Trump. They watch more cable news.
PSL and Tucker Carlson have contributed to the anti-war movement.
I'll tell you what they do. They pass gas into their couches. That's what they do. They're not organized for anything. Hey, they're not out there. They're not out there. I haven't seen one fucking demonstration with Tucker Carlson signs. We're with Tucker and the war. We're not one.
I've seen one in Hungary.
But you know what they do? They kill transvestites in the streets. That's the result.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Is only one criteria.
Because
they harass migrants. They feel the need to say racist things in front of my coworkers. That's what fucking Tucker Carlson does. He ain't done shit. And that fucking farce of the so-called right-left unity demonstration, they didn't. If you look at the PSL demonstration, we had 200 organizations that were based in working class and exploited communities and were able to raise money and bring awareness. You know what the fucking farce? You had 20 celebrities who made anti-trans jokes who helped raise money for the austerity lobby Libertarian Party. They didn't do fucking shit.
I don't think I committed the farce of comparing you or the PSL to the libertarians, but I have a simple question for you. That the public opinion, once the body count started to come back home during the Vietnam era, which Carlo is very familiar with, do you think that had no role to play in pulling out? It was just financial stuff? Because that's exactly.
I think the primary thing that got the United States out of Vietnam was the Vietnamese resistance. And
first and foremost, yes, but the realization.
Okay, and then another thing you don't want to talk about is the Chicano moratorium. The largest anti-war demonstration in the United States was the height of Chicano nationalism, where Chicano people were only like 5% of the population and 20% of the casualties, had the largest anti-war demonstration, bigger than any of the fucking hippies did, white fucking hippies did. It was oppressed people, and they fucking killed them in the streets and slaughtered them and killed their leaders.
Yeah, and I also want to point out, Ben, on one of our programs, you said it was not the anti-war demonstration that ended the war in Vietnam. And I partially agree with you. First of all,
the question was, do you think public opinion, which was then outraged when the body started coming home, when people actually came home without limbs, did that had nothing to play?
I think it was a good thing. I think it had a role to play.
That was the question.
But I think it was linked to legitimate organizations and roots within the people that PSL represents a better representation of, compared to the right-wing grifter falsehood, which was the so-called Rage Against the War Machine.
You know,
Well,
if you,
okay,
you can take the vote, you can take the presidential vote as a guide. You want to talk about Trump being excluded from the election. What did they do to McCarthy? They did worse. You know, the peace candidate. They crippled him. And then when McGovern, another peace candidate, came along, Nixon won in a landslide over him. I don't think McGovern won more than 1 or 2 states. So you want to tell me that the anti-war movement was effective in that regard in an electoral? Okay, I don't want to put it on you, but it wasn't effective in an electoral sense.
No, it
wasn't there.
Guys,
So it had to be
I
something.
just realized
It had to really be something else. First of all, the country ran out of money, so Nixon had to go off the gold
that had a
standard.
big effect.
Number
Guys,
two,
I'm late for dinner. I have to
Vietnam was
go.
a huge.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Leo.
Appreciate
Goodbye.
you joining
Bye,
us.
Leo.
Yeah, we should slowly
was a
wind down
huge-
to.
It was a huge testing ground for U.S.
but
weaponry, and
you-
they
you see-
basically tested the arsenal over and over again on Vietnam.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I wasn't talking about the electoral cycles. I said, did it have an effect on decision making? And that's what I feel it contributed to greatly, the public opinion. And that is also power.
Well, did they stop the war? We had thousands of people in the streets and under the Bush regime, and they didn't stop the fucking war at all.
Yeah, that didn't
I
work.
think I think the difference between the 60s and
2000s,
the 2000s was they destroyed left working class and oppressed infrastructure. It simply didn't exist. In the
That's
60s,
true.
I think the anti-war movement had more effect because we had RCP leading Vietnam veterans against the war. And that sentiment was more pervasive. And, the draft and middle class kids. Yeah, it was a whole nother issue.
Huge thing.
Yeah, but the draft had an effect.
You had to get educated.
Draft
and that's what happened to me. But I want to add another aspect to this, and that is the war in Vietnam didn't end until 1973, and it continued because, and this is where the gullibility of the American public is, Nixon ran on he had a peace plan. He didn't have shit.
Yeah.
He and Kissinger didn't have shit. It took another 5 years before the war came to an end. And that was because what Dust said, the Viet Cong and the Viet Minh were crushing it. They were crushing it.
Okay,
and then in 2 years after the U.S. left, by 1975, they were out.
Yeah.
The U.S. was out, and the South Vietnamese government collapsed.
We spent a good hour and a half. I think we have improved our ability to have a productive discussion. It's not.
Look, I enjoyed it. I think I got closer to the bottom opinions here, the bottom row team.
We did better than in previous efforts. Leo kind of made it lopsided. I was hoping to, have a more even discussion, and then Leo, I didn't expect.
I love Leo. I know I wasn't up to my, working class fight like this all the time. I don't know if it was up to his kind of standards, social standards, or whatever. I feel bad if I pissed him off. I didn't need to. So, Brother Leo, if you're watching this, I apologize.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I've had so many evenings sitting around with relatives and friends, or people in the neighborhood, I should be, and they're flipping through the channels of the TV, and they go, all I see are Ditsunas on the TV. Just Ditsunas.
What's I
guess the racism is so pronounced.
What's
a Ditsunas? I don't think that people appreciate how pronounced it is.
What's a Ditsunas? Just, I don't know.
Me either.
It's an Italian euphemism for nigger.
Oh, okay. Now I see why you said that instead.
Thank you.
You can say the N-word instead.
It's another word for mooly.
Yeah, just say N-word, brother.
He's
say
N-word. Yard.
You ain't got to say. Just say N-word, brother, man. We shouldn't say that, man.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do. I got to tell you. Listen, I write and I write dramatic monologues, and I use that word in several of my dramatic monologues because it's got to be used. It's got to have the impact.
So what other guest is going to be at work and joining us? Thank you so much, Dust, for helping to work through these issues with us. Again,
Yeah,
I mean, we
appreciate it, man.
didn't have 100% agreement on everything, but I thought it was more productive than in the past, and that is definitely something.
Yeah.
And come back anytime, please. It was so great having you.
Yeah, Carlo loves to have you.
Okay, so we'll be back on Thursday at 9 a.m. on the West Coast, my time, noon Eastern time. We went over 2 hours today. I think that's a record. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We did have a lot of live viewers. I think it was we made a good effort. We put in a good effort. So we'll see you guys in 2 days.
Wait, just a quick shout out. I think Jeremy Turner, Real Truth Talk, they seem to be returning viewers, and absolutely, love them for that.
Yeah,
and Wanderer.
Todd was watching. Pax Pedro, all the commenters. We appreciate your guys' input. And we made an effort. Is the best I could say. We made an effort. I'm not.
Yeah, we return to geopolitics, but we might have more of these big exchanges, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna hit end stream. Thank you, everybody. I'll talk to you guys backstage.